Preseason testing is underway in Bahrain, and it offered our first chance to see this season's actual F1 cars, not the heavily altered ones that the livery was revealed on. The running on day one is less of a time check and more of a vibe check, but those initial vibes can tell us a lot about what's been happening over the winter. Today, I'm going to check out all the innovation that was hidden from us at the car reveals, and vibe check a few of the teams to get an early indication of where everyone is. So, let's check it out. Preseason testing, especially day one, is all about checking that the car will actually hold together over an extended run. Prior to the 3-day test, each team is only allowed 100 kilometers of running, which is used as a filming day to get footage for sponsors and to make sure the car doesn't implode when it's actually driven. That stress testing continues in preseason testing, with the addition of aero rakes and flow-vis paint, as the engineers try to confirm that what they've seen in their wind tunnels and simulations is what is happening in the real world. Cars will get swapped out, setups will get played with, different tyres will get tested, and drivers will try to rack up as many laps as possible, compiling data for their engineers. Engineers from each team will take time to walk the pit lane and check out what the other teams have been up to over the winter, and one garage that was of particular interest to everyone was the Red Bull garage. Red Bull caught the headlines during the F1 launch season for their aggressive-looking RB20. Remarkably, the 2024 F1 Challenger had similarities to last year's Mercedes, notably the engine cover and the side pod area. In the current generation of cars, the ground effect floors generate 60 to 80% of the downforce of the car, but it is the side pods that gain a lot of attention due to how drastic any changes look. Red Bull dominated in 2023, and many people thought their car for this season would look quite similar. But while the rest of the grid have tried to replicate the RB19, the RB20 is a completely new beast. Naturally, given they were F1's dominant team, focus is already on what Red Bull are doing, and whether it'll work given Mercedes' own struggles with a similar type of design. Speaking during F1's testing coverage, Ted Kravitz offered some insight into Red Bull's side pods and cooling. How are they cooling it? Where's the air going into the side pod to cool the car? Well, we have our answer, he said. There is the vertical side pod entry, but actually there's a hidden side pod air intake just around the O of Oracle, just north upstream of it on the side pod. Ted is talking about the driver's left of the car here. It's around the E on the driver's right. Do you remember last year they had the underbite effectively for the side pod entry, so the hole was above and then it went down into the side pod? Well, they've flipped that, they've reversed that, they've turned it on its head. It's an overbite now, the top of the side pod sticks out and then the underneath is where they're taking in air for the radiators to cool. Given the substantial changes, there's still some uncertainty whether Red Bull can make it work, with Kravitz describing it as a big question mark. No doubt, radiator technology has come on, and Red Bull has taken advantage of that. They don't need such big side pod entries to cool the car, but this is just one of the main things that they've changed that is the big question mark. Is it going to work, he added. Well, the early vibe check of the car is that it definitely works. Max Verstappen was in the car all day Wednesday and started his running on the C2 tyre, one of the harder compounds this year. The grip wasn't there on that tyre, and he did a lot of sliding around for the first half hour, but after switching to the C3, the vibes were very good. The car looked stable, Max wasn't soaring the steering wheel or making many mid-turn adjustments, it was driving super smoothly. It wasn't just in the corners the car looked good either. On the straights, it looked super smooth as well, with Jolyon Palmer in the commentary saying it looked like it had active ride suspension. Obviously, it doesn't have active ride suspension as it isn't legal in F1, but it looked like it. Bahrain is a very bumpy track, and if you've seen endurance racing there, the cars bounce all over the place, but the Red Bull looked like it was driving on the most perfectly flat thing you could think of. Helmut Marko revealed that the team's plan is to continue reducing the size of their side pods throughout the season, but there are still questions over whether the new design philosophy works. Marko has hinted that Red Bull's engineers are working on a more extreme solution, similar to the zero side pod concept introduced by the Brackley squad at the start of its 2022 campaign, with an implementation scheduled for the Japanese Grand Prix in early April. They, talking about Mercedes, were also convinced by the data of their side podless concept, but in practice it didn't work at all, Marko said. We'll now see in the tests whether we can successfully implement this solution, or let's say a similar solution. Adrian Newey always favoured cars without radiators, but of course the engine people can't do that. That's logical. Those side pods will definitely be something to keep an eye on as the season continues. Moving on from Red Bull to Mercedes, the Zero pods aren't the only thing that has caught Adrian Newey's attention. Newey has taken a keen interest in Mercedes' new front wing, and Ted Kravitz has shared some more information about a key part of their car. The Mercedes front wing for 2024 features a thin cable of carbon fiber on the top element that connects the nose to a more traditional wing element that is on the outside edge of the front wing. There were questions over whether the wing would be legal or not, but it's now being reported that the FIA have checked it out and are happy with what the Silver Arrows have done. Speaking about the new front wing, Ted Kravitz said, "It's a genius move, so credit to John Owen, the designer here, who has come up with that bit of magic on the front wing." Adrian Newey revealed at the Red Bull car launch that there was an interesting bit of innovation on the Mercedes car, but he didn't say exactly what. Having now seen the Mercedes car on track, it has to be the front wing that he was referring to. In terms of vibes from the Mercedes team on day one, let's say they were low-key. George Russell took all the running on day one and had a very slow start to the day. He spent the majority of the morning session sitting in the garage watching his team work on the car, and that is a very bad sign for the Silver Arrows. Less time on track means less data gathered, and it also means something was very wrong with the car. The team had a screen up over the entrance to their garage, and that only happens when they're doing work right on the inside of the car. When George was on track, the car was doing a lot of bouncing down the pit straight, which is not what fans of the team have been wanting to see. Lewis Hamilton will be hoping that the team can get whatever the problem was sorted before he takes over the running on day 2. Talking about the last of the classic Big Three teams, the vibes of Ferrari look good to begin with. Something that is worth pointing out is that on the straights, where the Red Bull was gliding beautifully, the Ferrari was bouncing about a fair bit. It wasn't 2022 preseason testing porpoising bad, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. That might just have been them getting their ride height slightly wrong, but there could be more to it. The two teams that showed they might be able to upset the Big Three in 2023 were McLaren and Aston Martin. In Bahrain, the vibes from both teams seemed pretty good. Both cars looked good on track, they were driving smoothly, racking up a good lap count, and running their testing plan with very little trouble. All a good sign for a competitive start to the season. Looking at last year's bottom 5 teams, the Sauber team is an affront to the eyes on track. The neon green and black is so offensive in fact that I hope they are this season's backmarkers, so I see as little of them as possible. That may not be the case though, as the car looked nice and settled around the Bahrain circuit. The Red Bull sister team, the V-Carb, also looked pretty good out there, and their new livery is a definite improvement. After driving the car for the first time, Yuki Tsunoda said, "First run with the car 01, feeling great on the track." Williams as well looked relatively good on track. For now, it's impossible to tell if any of those 4 teams will make a move up the grid this season. With the grid as closely matched as it is at the moment though, any kind of gain in performance over your competitors can mean a massive gain in points scored. Finally, there's Haas's VF24. The team's new team principal, Io Komatsu, has already said he expects the team to be a backmarker to begin with, as their winter development has focused on their terrible tyre degradation, which really ruined their season in 2023. Judging from the team's running on day 1, there's nothing to suggest they'll be anywhere other than the back of the grid once the season starts. Have you been watching the preseason testing? What were your thoughts on the first day of running? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.